What's up? This is Brad with Be Real. I was getting ready for this podcast this week, and it reminded me of this story of when I was managing a bunch of salespeople. And I had a fairly new sales associate that I was working with, probably a year and a half. And he walked up to me and he said, "Hey, man, I noticed you do these meetings, these big meetings every Saturday, and you never do the same topic." And I said, "No, let me tell you how this works, man. What I do is I kind of go through my life and see what's going on with my life and, see what kind of issues I might be dealing with. And I just come up with a topic and then I just do some research and then I come up with my sales meeting because I feel like, if I need it or there's something that is important to me or something I need to do, probably some other people need to hear it." And this kid out of nowhere goes, "Man, you got a lot of issues." And I go, "Yeah, that's what makes it great about this podcast. If I just sit down and start thinking about things that I would like to work on or things that I would like to make better in my life, or maybe it's something that I feel like I've done fairly well at, or because of some things that have happened in my life, I've had a little bit of victory in that area." And so what I try to do on that is, and what we're going to talk about is invincibility today. And before you turn this deal off and before you stop listening because you're in your mental state of mind thinking, well, I can't be invincible, that's wrong. Uh, Invincibility is a state of mind, it's not a destination. And so I want to share with you, I'm not going to be able to fill your cup to the point where you feel like you're invincible, but I want to kind of share with you um, in my life things that I've gone through that hopefully when you hang up with this deal or stop listening, watching this deal, you'll be like, dang, it is possible, and once you get that in your head that it's possible, anything's possible. And part of the reason I hope you guys watch this deal too, is I always joke around with people and say, you know why you need to watch this podcast? Because no matter how crappy your day is, if you'll watch this podcast and turn this deal off, go, well, shit, man, my life's jacked up, but it ain't as bad as Brad. So, so, you know, hey, there's peace in knowing that, man. So I was actually really got into this deal. So I don't always have, but I actually did quite a bit of research that I want to share with you, or thoughts and things throughout the week. A lot of this stuff I just memorized, but I don't want to miss anything. I don't want to miss this opportunity because I really feel like that this is extremely important. That no matter what, here's the biggest kind of definition of invincibility. Invincibility is not a measurement of success. Um, Invincibility is actually a measure of how many times you get the crap knocked out of you and you get back up. Those people are extremely invincible, and those are the people that people are drawn to. And look, do I want people to go through hardship? No, but at the same time, I know it never stops. My life, it's a lot of things good happen in my life, but along with that too, there's setbacks, and I have to realize that those, in my opinion, the way I always look at setbacks is that I go through those setbacks. I've always been kind of a strong person in stature, a big guy, so I never really think of, well, I'm going to go through this situation and it's going to make me stronger. I always look at it as, okay, while I'm going through this, I'm going to try to retain as much of this as I possibly can, so that when I get to the other side, I can drop back and help other people. So when people come up to me and say, hey, this, and this happened, go, dude, I completely understand. I've been there before. And they're like, you've been there? They're like, yeah, bro. Yeah, I've been there. So let me share with you, this is what I tell them. Let me share with you just a couple of things that I feel like might be helpful that I did when I was standing in your shoes. And hey, man, there's strength in numbers, which is one of the big things of invincibility is don't go it alone. It's extremely important if you possibly can. There's this thing that says uh, seclusion is powerful, isolation is devastating. And so a lot of times what happens when we hit rocky waters, we want to kind of go hide somewhere or something. And that is the absolute worst thing that you can do. The best thing for you to do is start thinking in your head, who's a couple people I can reach out to, who's a couple people that I might want to talk to, and I promise you they're there. They're in your lives. That there are people that would love to help if you just knew it. I read one time, or somebody told me, said, if you're on a rocky highway, the best exit to take is repentance, which is forgiveness, grace. Seek somebody out that you can share something with. Don't go it alone. So anyway, kind of chase that rabbit a little bit. But the reason too that's so important is really invincibility is a mindset. And it's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy. Everybody struggles with it. Nobody's life is perfect. So it is a mindset and invincibility. But if you say, you know what, it's like we all kind of search for wealth, or we all kind of go through life wanting to gain money or whatever. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if we'd actually go through life thinking, you know what, man, I need to be a little more invincible. I need to be a little more tenacious. I need to be, if you do that and you seek that out, you can strengthen it. It's almost like a muscle. You can strengthen it. But what really this is a determining factor of invincibility is actually the way your mind thinks. And I've shared this with you before. I did this study with where Napoleon Hill, and I'm gonna get to Napoleon Hill in a second. But I did this study, and there's an internal dialogue that the human mind has of over 2,500 to 4,000 words a minute. 2,500 to so nobody is going to talk to you today as much as you're going to talk to yourself. Now here's a little bit of the negative part of the deal. The sad part about that deal is if we don't harness that and we don't monitor that and we don't inventory that, 70% of that internal dialogue can veer off into negativity. And so believe it or not, how you talk to yourself is going to be a huge factor in invincibility and a growth mindset. And the reason a growth mindset is so important is you're always moving forward. And if you're perpetuating a movement forward, when you hit these walls, you just roll through them. When you hit these walls, you just roll through them. And after you've hit them, before you go, oh yeah, shit, that happened a year ago. I know how to deal with that. So that's why that growth mindset. People think, well, Brad, man, dude, I'm just cool, man. I'm cool. I'm just gonna hang right where I'm at. Well, your ass ain't gonna hang where you're at, because here's a couple of reasons why. One, the world continues to go. So yeah, you're gonna stay where you're at, but in the meantime, the world's gonna go around you. One. Two, if you're thinking, well, Brad, man, just calm down, man. I'm just gonna keep making the kind of money I make now, and I'm just gonna hang where I'm at. I'm happy where great. Well, there's this thing called inflation, and it gains 4 to 5% a year. So if your ass stays where you're at on a regular basis, and you want to stay there for the next 3 years, in 3 or 4 years from now, your quality of life is about 15% less. So, mindset, and how important mindset is, and how important that you actually monitor and inventory your mindset. Look, we all got friends that we walked up to them and we know as soon as they open their mouth, they're not going to tell you the truth. There was another famous quote that said, why would I take criticism from somebody that I would take no life advice from? Think about that now. You should never accept criticism from somebody that you wouldn't take life advice from. So on the flip side to yourself is it's extremely important that you listen to the truth, that you got it. You have everything you need to get to where you need to. You were sent to this earth with every tool that you need to achieve what you were sent here to achieve. Now, I don't have certain tools that other people have. You know why? Because I'm not going where they're going. I'm going someplace else. So keeping that in mind, but continually, I've said that before on a podcast. You're 4 times more likely to remember failure than you do success. Man, my wife's great at that. I that's something I got to keep working at. If I walk up to my wife and explain something to her that might be going to happen in the future that could be negative, she tells me 4 positive things instantly that happened before that negative thing happened a year ago. So what's my wife doing? My wife's constantly remembering all the good things where I'm constantly seeing the potholes. So that's why she's able to cruise through the road like that. So continue to making sure that you're talking to yourself. Continue to make sure that you're not listening to the lies. The other thing I just talked about, Napoleon Hill, he did this study research at the beginning of the year. What he did is he went and found hundreds of the wealthiest people on earth at the turn of the century. Getty, Hunt. I mean, all these extremely wealthy people. And I'll tell you at the end what he found out that the wealthy people all had in common. But he also, went and visited with people that weren't quite so successful or that struggled. And there's 2 things that stood out in every person that he talked to when he was getting to know them. 2 things. One, they procrastinated and they quit. Think about that. That is not that hard to change. If you get a thought in your head, you get an intuition in your head, get up and go do it. If you thinking, look, I've done this research myself. Success normally doesn't come until the 4th major obstacle that you have to overcome. So if you're asked, try something and you fail and you quit, you ain't even got close to it yet. You got to go through 3 or 4 more obstacles before you even get to the land of success. And that's why, and then you hear those people, you hear the, Edison and Einstein and those people like that. You're talking about hundreds and hundreds of failures before they ever saw success. But do we hear about that? No. Do we ever hear about how many shots Michael Jordan missed? No. Do we hear about how many, NBA championships he has? Yeah. But he had to miss a lot of shots to make it to the championship. So anyway, that deal of procrastinating and quitting, I was talking to another buddy one time and I said, hey, what's one inheritance that you'd like to leave for your kids? It was an amazing answer. I was kind of blown away. You know what he said? Discipline. If I could give my kids or leave my kids an inheritance of discipline, they would never have to struggle the rest of their lives because they would do what they needed to do instantly. They would get up early. They would face the tasks that they needed to face when they needed to face them. They wouldn't put the tough things off tomorrow. Do the tough things first. Do the easy things later. Anyway, discipline. Um, the 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 other thing is that I've noticed this, and I've talked to more and more people going through this is, um, like I said, there's continually have life setbacks. Do I like them? Do I wish? No, but I will tell you that every time I have one of those setbacks or anytime one of those things happen to me, when I get to the other side of it, there are 2 things that always happens. One, I'm a better, stronger person. Do I like going through the hardship? No, but I'm a better, stronger person. And the other thing is that every time I get to the other side of that is the treasure, is the blessing. So on the other side of the biggest storms are always the biggest blessings, always the biggest opportunities, always the biggest pot of gold. So, but if I had not gone through those, and what I've noticed too is in my life, because I haven't been everything that I say I am on these. I encourage you all to be in these podcasts. What happens to me is when I know that this storm is coming, what I have a tendency of doing is going, ooh, I'll just head over here, right? So what the universe has a tendency of doing, then it ends up moving the storm over here. But it's a year later and I'm in worse shape now. So if I had faced it here, now it's a year later and I got to face it here, but on the other side of it is still the blessing. On the other side of it is still the pot of gold. So had I gone through that in the first place, I'd be further down the road in life. And I'm telling you, as you go through these obstacles, as you go through these hardships, what ends up happening too is the cadence of your life begins to increase. The cadence of your life begins to pick up. And so the thought about, being fearless and being courageous is not about avoiding things that are fearful. It's about facing the fear and then taking a decisive action. So we all have things that we're afraid of. We all have things that might seem like they're bigger than us. But man, I can't tell you how many times that I've been in one of those situations, and I go to call my wife and I go, "Hey, I got through that deal," and she goes, "No," and she goes, "It wasn't that bad, was it? And you enjoyed yourself, didn't you?" I go, "Okay, man, later, dude. I'm done talking to you," because she already knows what I'm gonna say. This the most fearful part of this deal is the journey up to the thing you're fearful of. Once you're in it, it ain't that fearful. Once you're in it, the 99% of the time you go, "Dang, I wish I'd have faced it. Dang, I would have wished I got in the middle of this deal sooner." So, the other thing that I would highly suggest with you is get a couple people. Don't go it alone. Have some people that you can talk to. Have some people that you can be accountable with. Have some people, obviously in the world, my opinion is, probably that sphere of people is shrinking a little bit more where you really should have, but you should have two or three really good people that they can tell you everything about their life, and there's confidentiality between you, and you should have those people in your life because it just strengthens everybody. It's not a sign of weakness. It is. And I'll tell you where this really became apparent to me, when I was going through this journey of this my transformation, when the company I was working for decided they were going to go another direction. When I got out there and I started seeing, because I mean, I've been clocking in and out for 34 years, bro. I worked for the same company. There was the same source of income. I did the traditional way. Yeah, I was extremely blessed. I'm not knocking that. But at the same time, once I got on the other side of that deal, I was like, dang, these people, they have revenue streams that are amazing. They're way less stressful than I was. And so one, I saw all these revenue streams that they had, that they were able to, obtain this wealth and get these kind of things from this deal. But you know what else I noticed? I'm talking about uber successful CEOs in Tulsa, in Oklahoma, online. The majority of the uber successful people had two or three coaches. They had two or three consultants. They had a spiritual pastoral coach. They had a business coach. They had a life coach. And so these people that you see is just these, people doing these amazing things. And yeah, they're doing amazing things, but they ain't doing it by themselves. Let's go to golf. Like golf. That's a singular person sport most of the time, right? But you go look at those PGA golfers, bro. They got like five coaches. They got a driving coach. They got a strength coach. They got a putting coach. So why would we, just common old folks, if these uber successful, physically, mentally strong people have four or five coaches, why would we try to go it on our own, man? It's just us. So anyway, get yourself accountability. Get some people that you can share with. There's strength in that. And they're able to see things that you can't see. And a lot of times, I'm telling you, I'm going to go into this in a second. A lot of times, by you saying what this internal dialogue is, what you got it in your head, "Oh, I'm not going to make it. I don't have what it takes to get there." You replay this over and over in your head. And a lot of times when you go to share this with somebody else, go, "Hey, dude, can I tell you what I was thinking about, man? I ain't going to make it, man. It ain't going to work. This ain't." It's almost comical because once it comes out of your mouth, you're like, "That is the stupidest thing that I've ever heard." But once you put it out there in the universe and share it with somebody else, and they're like, "Okay, man, repeat that to yourself." This goes to the other part of the deal that I was going to tell you about Napoleon Hill. There were a couple things Napoleon Hill found at the turn of the century that almost everybody had, that was uber super successful. Is they had vision, they had hope, and they had goals. They just didn't go through life going, "Well, I'm just going to go to do today. I'm just going to go do April. I'm just going to go do March. I'm just going to go do May. And dude, whatever happens, happens." No, they had vision. I'm telling you, those people, the majority of those people, that was the absolute difference. Is one, they didn't procrastinate. Two, they didn't quit. And three, they had a belief and they had in their minds that there was nothing that they couldn't achieve. And they wrote it down. They shared it with other people. They had other people in their lives. So let me wrap this deal up a little bit. Um, the thing that invincibility and the reason that I share this, and it's kind of one of the pillars that I stand on, is one, it was something that a lot of you guys know that 40 years ago I'm homeless, right? And I ate out of dumpsters, lived under a bridge, I was shot at. Well, after you go through all that and you get to the other side and you become successful, you literally have that sense at majority of the time of invincibility, right? And so for me to have that and not to share that with other people, is not, in my mind, is not right. Like, I went through all that. I gained all these tools throughout this situation. Am I perfect? No. Do I struggle? Yeah, I probably said that 10 times during this podcast. But you know what? Me continuing to say I have issues, me continuing to say that I have things that I'm working on, that is a good thing to share with people, because then other people understand it's relatable and people understand that people have struggles. It's not the end of the world. Is a way out of it. I jokingly tell people, look, dude, if I can make it, if I can go from eating out of a dumpster to being the CEO of a company that delivered $4 billion in 10 years, I'm pretty sure you have the capabilities to move forward through whatever you're moving forward. But the biggest thing, I'll go one more time, is believing. It is fearless courage. It's extremely to remain hopeful. That was one thing during my homeless nightmare that I will never forget, is this state of absolute hopelessness. And I'll tell you what that was a little bit. I'm sitting there under the bridge. I'm like, okay, I have no driver's license. I have no clothes. I have no way to get, I keep replaying this tape over and over. Um, I have no way to get an interview. I mean, I want to get a job. I want to get back into life, right? And so it was a complete state of hopelessness. So that's why one of the things I continue to talk about too, because that will give you anxiety. And those of you that don't know my story, what ended up happening was one morning, out of nowhere, this Christian song was playing in my head the day before, and that was the first time I had felt hope in a year and a half. And then the next morning, my brother knew the area that I was at, that I was homeless. He's driving around, and a guy I barely knew in Oklahoma City sent my brother a bus ticket to send me to Oklahoma City because he was going to try to get me a job over there, right? So I go from this absolute sense of hopelessness to absolute hope that something good is going to happen, like that. But you can take yourself there. Here's the biggest thing you need to do. Whatever, don't wait for time because it's never going to be perfect. Inventory what it is around you, whatever tools you have around you, inventory friends that might be interested in helping you, and take a step. That's the path to hopefulness. And then approaching the future with courage and conviction. I'm telling you guys, I hope everybody watched to the end of this deal, because it yeah, is when you stop watching this podcast, and you spend a day working on this, are you going to be invincible? No. But over a period of time, if you make that your end goal, I promise you anybody can do this deal. I promise you there's a better quality of life. I promise you that there are things that were set to this earth for you to enjoy, blessings for you to enjoy. Don't stop, don't quit before you get there. Hey man, go have a great day and be real.